Welcome back to Growth House, your home for everything that makes you think bigger, live smarter, and grow beyond what you thought was possible.
And if you are new here, we are doing something a little different today. We aren't just skimming the surface of our source material. We are going all the way to the bottom.
We absolutely are. And by the bottom, I mean, well, the absolute floor, like
Yeah.
rock bottom.
The literal floor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let me paint the scene for you straight from the case study we're deep diving into today. So it's 2 a.m.
Never a good time for financial decisions.
No, definitely not. The location is the floor of a bedroom in a shared apartment. The only light in the room is, that harsh blue glow of a smartphone screen.
Right.
And the protagonist of our source material, let's just call him the subject for this breakdown, is sitting there cross-legged. It is completely silent around him, but internally, it is absolute chaos.
He's panicking.
Oh, full panic. He has a calculator app open. His heart is pounding in his ears like a drum. It's a physical manifestation of that panic.
Yeah.
He is finally doing something he had actively avoided for 3 straight years.
Adding it all up.
Adding up every single thing he owes.
Let's actually pause right there on that physical reaction, that heart pounding. That isn't just like generic stress.
Right.
In behavioral psychology, that is the literal fight or flight response. The amygdala has completely hijacked the brain.
Wow.
Yeah. And usually this happens when, I don't know, a tiger is chasing you. But in the modern world, it happens when we confront our financial reality. The human body genuinely doesn't know the difference between a physical predator and a past due credit card statement.
That is a perfect framing because he felt hunted. I mean, he's adding it up. We're talking credit cards with interest rates that hover around like 24%.
Ouch.
Yeah. Past due phone bills that are literally one notice away from disconnection.
Yeah.
He's even adding in a random $200 he borrowed from a friend 3 months prior and just
Conveniently forgot about.
exactly pretended to forget about. So he hits equals,
Yeah.
and the number staring back at him wasn't 0.
It never is.
No, it was negative.
Yeah.
Deeply, painfully negative.
That specific moment is what we call the visceral break. Up until that second, he was likely operating under what's known as the ostrich effect.
The ostrich effect. Wait, break that down for everyone listening.
Sure, it's a behavioral finance term. It describes our tendency to just, avoid negative financial information.
Like burying your head in the sand.
Exactly. We see this in the data all the time. People will check their investment portfolios daily when the market is up. But when the market crashes, logins drop to near 0.
Because looking at it makes it real.
Right. We bury our heads to avoid the pain of reality. So that 2 a.m. moment on the floor, that was the subject forcibly pulling his head out of the sand.
And it completely shattered him. The source actually gives us his internal monologue right at that second. He says, how did I get here? I'm supposed to be smart. I'm supposed to have it figured out.
That identity crisis is so common.
It really is. He was looking at that screen and he just felt broken. But, and this is why we are doing this deep dive, looking back on this material, while that night broke something in him, it also poured the foundation for everything that came next.
The rebuild.
The rebuild. So today, look, this isn't a generic 5 tips to save money listicle. We're doing a raw, unfiltered deep dive into the mechanics of going from less than 0, a negative net worth, to saving the first $10,000.
And I think we really need to be clear about the scope here for you listening. We aren't talking about how to become a millionaire today.
No.
We are talking strictly about the first 10,000. In financial psychology, that specific number is very often cited as the safety threshold. It's the barrier between living in constant survival mode and actually living with agency.
It feels absolutely impossible when you're at 0, but once you hit it, the entire world looks different.
It really does.
But before we even unpack the how, I actually have a question for you. Do you remember the very first time you had $10,000 to your name? Like actually sitting there, liquid in your checking account?
I do, vividly. And looking at the data from our source material, my personal experience actually aligns perfectly with the subjects.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't what I expected at all. We have this Hollywood montage idea that balloons are going to fall from the ceiling, right?
Yeah, like Ode to Joy starts playing in the background.
Exactly. But for me, and clearly for the subject in our story, it was quiet. It was almost weirdly anticlimactic. I just remember opening my banking app 5 or 6 times that day just to make sure it wasn't a glitch.
Just refreshing the page. Why do you think that is? Why isn't there a massive rush of euphoria?
It's likely due to a concept called hedonic adaptation, but working in reverse.
Okay, explain that.
So when you have spent so much time being broke, Your baseline for normal is chaos. Your baseline is stress. When you suddenly introduce stability, that $10,000 buffer, it actually feels wrong to your nervous system.
Because you aren't used to being safe.
Exactly. It feels like the universe is going to correct the error and take the money back. You feel like an imposter in your own financial life.
That is such a crucial insight to start with. The first 10K doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with a weird sense of vertigo.
Vertigo is the perfect word for it.
So our mission today is to normalize that entire journey for you. We are going to break down the diagnosis of why we get broke in the first place, the mindset shifts required to fix it, the actual tactical blueprint he used, and of course, the pitfalls.
Because they're always pitfalls.
Always. And we aren't just skimming. We're analyzing the psychological and mathematical underpinnings of every single step.
And we should definitely start with that diagnosis. You mentioned the subject sitting on the floor at 2 a.m., but people don't just magically land on the floor by accident.
Right. It isn't spontaneous.
It's a slow descent. So what was the context of his life leading up to that exact moment?
Context is definitely key here. The subject was in his early 20s. He had a job. Now, it wasn't some flashy six-figure tech job, but it was an average, decent income.
So on paper, he was fine.
On paper, he should have been totally fine. But the reality was he was living completely paycheck to paycheck.
Oh.
And let's be really specific about what that means for him.
Please do.
It means the checking account hits $4.12, 3 days before payday.
Oh, that is stressful.
It means floating basic expenses on credit cards just to bridge the gap until the direct deposit hits.
So we have to ask the hard question here, looking at the source. Was this a systemic cost of living issue? Like, was the rent simply too high relative to his wages? Or was it purely behavioral?
It was a mix, as it almost always is. But if we strip away the excuses, the source material points to a very specific behavioral root cause. They call it ego spending.
Let's really unpack that term, ego spending, because it sounds incredibly judgmental right out of the gate, but it's actually a very well-documented economic phenomenon.
It is.
Yes, this connects directly to Thorstein Veblen's theory of conspicuous consumption.
Break that down for us. Who is Veblen?
So Veblen was an economist and sociologist back in the late 19th century, and he observed that people buy goods not just for their utility, meaning how useful they are, but for the status they signal to other people.
Okay, so buying things just to look good.
Right. When our subject bought expensive sneakers, he wasn't buying foot protection. He was buying a membership card to a specific social tribe.
That aligns perfectly with the story in the source. He explicitly writes about buying sneakers he didn't even need because they were the right sneakers.
Exactly. Signaling.
And he ate out every single day because, in his head, bringing a plastic Tupperware container to work felt like a poor person thing.
Wow. The stigma of leftovers.
He wanted to be the guy grabbing the $15 fast casual lunch with the team. And on weekends, he would split bills evenly with friends who literally made double what he made.
Just to avoid the awkwardness.
Just to avoid that conversation of, hey, I only had the side salad and a water.
That bill-splitting example is classic signaling theory. Think about it in biology. Animals signal fitness to potential mates or rivals, like a peacock showing its huge tail.
Right.
In modern capitalism, we signal financial fitness by splitting the check. To say, I can't afford this, is to signal weakness. It triggers a primal fear of being ostracized from the group.
And the internal conflict he describes was just exhausting. Every single time he swiped that credit card, there was a loud voice in the back of his head screaming, "You cannot afford this, man."
But he would swipe it anyway.
He would swipe anyway. He just suppressed that voice.
This creates a really vicious cycle that I like to call financial emotional eating.
Financial emotional eating. That is a vivid term. How does that mechanism actually work?
Well, think about the neurochemistry of actual emotional eating. You feel bad. Maybe you're stressed at work, lonely, or feeling insecure.
Right, so you grab a snack.
You reach for a donut. That sugar hits your brain and releases a massive spike of dopamine. You suddenly feel good. But for how long? 10 minutes? Maybe 20?
And then the crash inevitably comes.
Exactly. The sugar crash hits, and then the guilt sets in. You feel terrible because you broke your diet, or you just physically feel sluggish.
Yeah.
So what do you do to soothe that new bad feeling? You eat again. Money works the exact same way. The subject feels insecure about his status. Maybe he feels behind his peers.
So he buys the sneakers.
He buys the sneakers. He gets the dopamine rush of the purchase. This is actually known as retail therapy in clinical studies, and it does temporarily reduce sadness. It really does work for a minute.
But then he has to look at his bank balance.
And the shame hits.
The shame hits hard. And to numb that shame, he goes out for expensive drinks with his friends.
Spend to feel good, feel bad because you spend again to soothe the bad feeling. It's a completely self-reinforcing feedback loop.
That is a perfect description of his life at that time. It was just a continuous shame spiral.
Uh-huh.
And that 2 a.m. moment on the floor, that was the crash.
The bottom of the loop.
Yeah, is the moment the dopamine completely stopped working and only the cold reality was left.
So he has this massive realization. He's at rock bottom. What happened the very next morning? Did he wake up, put on an 80s montage song, and just fix his entire life in 3 minutes?
I really wish. That would be the great movie version. No, the reality was much messier and frankly a lot more depressing. The next day, he woke up and just felt heavy.
I can imagine.
He felt deeply sorry for himself for about a week. He basically just moped. He was angry at the economy, he was angry at his boss, angry at the cost of his rent.
Externalizing the blame.
Exactly. It took a solid week of wallowing before he could actually start making slow, frustrating changes.
And that is so important to validate for anyone listening. We very often think that awareness equals instant transformation.
Right, like knowing is half the battle.
But psychologists call this the pre-contemplation to contemplation stage of change. There is almost always a grieving period for the life you thought you were living. You literally have to mourn the rich version of yourself you were pretending to be.
That makes total sense. And before he could even touch the numbers, before he could even try to fix the wallet, he realized he had to fix the headspace.
The mindset.
Right. If the mindset is broken, the budget won't hold. It's like trying to download new software onto a computer with a completely fried hard drive.
This is the exact part most mainstream financial advice completely skips over. They jump straight to, hey, stop buying lattes.
Avocado toast.
Right. But if you don't address the psychological drivers, the actual why behind the spending, you're just putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole.
Exactly. In the source material, the subject identifies 3 specific mindset shifts that absolutely had to happen before he saved a single dollar.
What was the first one?
The first one was changing his narrative identity. He had spent his entire life saying things like, I'm just bad with money, or math isn't my thing.
Oh, I hear that constantly.
I've said it myself. And you say it so much it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy.
That is a classic fixed mindset. It's a concept popularized by Dr. Carol Dweck. When you say, I am bad with money, you are making a definitive statement about your essential nature.
Like it's baked into your DNA.
Exactly. It's like saying, I am tall or I have brown eyes. It strongly implies it cannot be changed. So if you honestly believe it's immutable, why would you even try to fix it?
You wouldn't.
You've essentially given yourself a free pass to fail. It is a brilliant defense mechanism to protect your ego from the pain of trying and failing.
Precisely. It was a get-out-of-jail-free card for financial stupidity. So the shift was changing the language. He forcibly stopped saying, I'm bad with money, and started saying, I am learning how to manage money.
The word learning is the absolute key there. It signals a process. It allows for neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to rewire itself.
Right.
If you were learning to play the piano and you hit a wrong note, you don't say, I'm a moral failure. You say, I need to practice that measure again. By framing money as a skill to be acquired rather than a talent you were just born without, you open the door to actual growth.
That shift alone was huge. It moved him from a state of complete paralysis to a state of potential.
What was the second shift?
The second shift was realizing the actual cost of being broke. He used to think saving money was all about deprivation, about giving things up.
Which nobody wants to do.
Exactly. But then he looked closely at his bank statements. Late fees, overdraft fees, higher interest rates because his credit score was absolute trash.
The invisible taxes.
Paying for expensive convenience food because he was too disorganized to go grocery shopping. He realized that his avoidance and laziness were costing him actual hard-earned cash.
This is often called the poverty premium, or sometimes you'll hear it called the Vimes-Boots theory of economics.
The Vimes-Boots theory.
Yeah, it's the idea that being poor is incredibly expensive. If you can't afford to fix your car properly once, you pay for 3 cheap fixes that end up costing way more in the long run.
Right.
But what's really interesting here is his emotional reaction to seeing all those fees.
It made him furious. It made him angry. And the source argues that's the secret sauce right there. Sadness makes you want to stay in bed. Anger. Anger makes you move.
It's a highly motivating emotion.
He used that anger as fuel. He realized he wasn't depriving himself by saving, he was stopping the bleeding. He was flat out refusing to let the banks take any more of his money in stupid fees.
That is such a powerful reframing. He turned passive victimhood into active defense. He wasn't just cutting back, he was fighting back.
Yes.
Psychologically, anger is an approach emotion, whereas sadness is a retreat emotion. By harnessing that anger, he finally mobilized his energy.
Exactly. And the third shift, and honestly, this was the hardest one for him socially, was boundaries.
Oh, this is where it gets tough.
He had to face the very hard truth that his spending habits were completely tied to who he hung out with. He had a circle of friends where the default baseline activity was spending money.
Bar hopping, dinners out.
Expensive brunches, spontaneous weekend trips.
This touches on mimetic desire, which is a theory by René Girard. We don't just naturally want things, we actually want what other people want.
So we copy them.
We mirror the desires of our models, in this case, our close friends. If your friends desire $18 craft cocktails, you will suddenly desire $18 craft cocktails. Breaking that pattern feels like risking exile from the tribe.
It really did. He writes about being absolutely terrified of losing his friends. But he had to start saying, yeah, I'm good, or I'm just going to sit this one out.
Which is so hard to say.
He had to physically distance himself from the people who encouraged the reckless spending.
That is incredibly difficult because of the crab bucket mentality.
Explain the crabs.
When one crab tries to climb out of a bucket, the other crabs literally reach up and pull it back down. When you start saving money and being disciplined, you inadvertently hold a mirror up to your friends' bad spending habits.
And they don't like what they see.
They might feel judged by your restraint, even if you don't say a single word to them about it. How did his friends actually react when he started saying no?
It was a very mixed bag. And he says this was the ultimate litmus test. The real friends, they respected it. They say, cool, man, let's just hang out at your place and play video games then.
That's a good friend.
But the ones who were really just there for the party, they fell away. And he realized a harsh truth. The friends who judge you for trying to better your life are not the circle you need anyway.
That is a painful but completely necessary audit of your social life. If their friendship is entirely contingent on you swiping your credit card, it's not really friendship.
It's a transaction.
Exactly, it's a transaction.
So with the mindset finally shifted, meaning he's saying, I'm learning, he's angry at the bank fees, and he's setting social boundaries, he was finally ready for the tactical blueprint.
The actual how-to.
This is the how-to part.
Yep.
And I want to be incredibly clear for everyone listening. He didn't use some fancy AI-driven budgeting app. He didn't go out and hire a CPA.
Keep it simple. Complexity is the enemy of execution.
Totally.
So what was step one of the blueprint?
Step one was the visceral audit. He sat down at his kitchen table with a physical notebook and a pen, not a spreadsheet, a piece of paper.
Interesting choice.
He wrote down every single dollar that came in and every single dollar that went out for the last 3 months.
Let's dwell on the medium he chose here. Why the physical act of writing? Why not just download a CSV file from the bank into Excel?
Because you can scroll past a number on a screen and not feel a thing.
Yeah.
But when you have to physically write out the words, $45, Uber Eats, Tuesday, wasn't even hungry.
Oh, that stings.
It forces you to confront the absolute stupidity of the spend. It slows the entire process down. You feel the weight of it in your hand.
There is actual neuroscience to back this up. Handwriting engages the reticular activating system in the brain, often called the RAS.
The RAS?
Yeah, it filters information and assigns importance to it. Writing something down physically signals to your brain, hey, this matters. Furthermore, it reintroduces the pain of paying.
Which we lose with cards.
Exactly. Cash and handwriting hurt. Digital swipes are completely painless. He was resensitizing himself to the actual cost of his life.
She said it was deeply embarrassing for him. But shame, in very small, controlled doses, can be an incredible teacher. Once he finally saw the damage on paper, he moved to step 2, the survival budget.
Now, budget is a dirty word for a lot of people. How does a survival budget actually differ from, say, the standard 50-30-20 rule?
A regular budget might have nice little categories for entertainment or dining out. The survival budget had absolutely none of that. It was scorched earth.
Wow.
He asked himself one question. What is the absolute minimum I need to not die and to keep my job?
So basics only.
Rent, groceries, and I mean bulk beans, rice, chicken, no expensive snacks, transport to work, and his basic phone bill. That is it.
No extras at all.
New Netflix, no Spotify, no new clothes. He didn't even get haircuts unless he did it himself in the bathroom mirror.
That sounds incredibly restrictive. A lot of critics would argue that this level of restriction leads to frugal fatigue, where you just burn out and eventually binge spend. How long did he actually plan to do this?
And that's the key right there.
Yeah.
If you say, I'm doing this forever, you will quit in a week.
Hmm.
He set a very strict timeline. 90 days. 3 months.
Ah, okay.
He told himself, look, I can do anything for 90 days. It was a sprint to build a safety net, not a marathon for the rest of his life.
Setting a terminal date is crucial for psychological endurance. It transforms indefinite suffering into a finite challenge.
Right.
It's the difference between being put in prison, which feels indefinite, and being in boot camp, which is temporary and has a graduation date.
Exactly. And to keep himself from cracking during those 90 days, he used step 3, gamification.
Making it a game.
He needed to replace that dopamine hit he used to get from spending with something else. So he made a giant chart on his bedroom wall. Every single day he went without spending money on non-essentials. He marked it off with a big red X.
Visual progress.
He tracked his savings balance daily. Watching that number tick up, even if it was literally just by $10, became his new addiction.
He essentially hijacked his own brain's reward system. This is the quantified self movement applied directly to personal finance.
Quantified self.
Yeah, when you track a metric visually, you naturally want to improve it. He replaced the spender's high with the saver's high.
And he added a very important release valve. The rule he set was, if he stuck to the budget perfectly for 30 days straight, he got one reward. Just one.
What was it?
He could spend exactly $50 guilt-free on whatever he wanted.
That is so smart. It prevents that binge purge cycle we talked about. If you restrict too much for too long, you eventually snap and, I don't know, buy a jet ski.
Right, you go crazy.
But a controlled release, a pressure valve, keeps the whole system stable.
Precisely. And he noted that $50 felt like $1 million because he had actually earned it. But here's the reality check of the story, and this brings us to step 4. You can budget until you're blue in the face, but there is a mathematical floor.
Right. You can only cut so much.
You can only cut expenses to 0. You cannot cut them below 0.
Yeah.
He realized about a month in that his main income just wasn't high enough to dig out of the hole fast enough.
So we had to look at the other side of the equation.
Yeah.
The income. A lot of people get permanently stuck in the scarcity mindset of cutting coupons, and they completely ignore the abundance mindset of just making more money.
Right. So step 4 was increasing income, the side hustle. And I do not mean starting some highly scalable tech company in his garage.
No, we're talking basic hustles.
I mean unsexy, gritty, manual work. He started freelancing his skills, sold a bunch of stuff he didn't need on online marketplaces. He even tutored high school kids on weekends. He was working 7 days a week.
Let's actually talk about selling stuff for a second. There is a cognitive bias called the endowment effect.
The endowment effect.
Yes, it's where we overvalue things simply because we own them. Did he struggle to let go of his physical possessions?
Oh, absolutely he did. He writes specifically about staring at this old acoustic guitar he hadn't played in 4 years. He thought to himself, but what if I want to learn later?
Classic endowment effect.
But he forced himself to sell it anyway. And he said the cash in his hand ultimately felt way better than watching the dust collect on that guitar.
I bet it did. And what did he actually do with that extra side hustle cash? This is usually the critical part where people mess up.
This was his golden rule. 100% of the side hustle money went directly to savings.
100%.
His main job covered the bare-bones survival budget. The side hustle was purely for building his future freedom. He didn't even see that money as spendable income.
I love that rule. It completely separates your living money from your growing money. It also speaks to a willingness to do what others just won't do.
Yeah.
A lot of people say they want financial freedom, but they really aren't willing to go tutor a teenager on a Saturday morning to get it.
That willingness to do the unsexy work is the ultimate differentiator. Everyone wants to be the CEO. Nobody wants to be the janitor of their own life.
That's a great way to put it.
But sometimes you just have to grab the mop.
So he's earning more, he's spending significantly less, but willpower is a finite resource. It literally depletes throughout the day. How did he make sure he didn't accidentally spend that growing savings pile during a moment of weakness?
Step 5, automation. He completely took willpower out of the equation.
Smart.
He set up automatic transfers to hit his checking account on payday before he even woke up in the morning. The money moved instantly to a completely separate savings account at a totally different bank.
A different bank entirely.
Yes, one he didn't even have a debit card for. Out of sight, out of mind.
Oh.
He treated his savings like a non-negotiable bill, just like paying his rent to a landlord.
This is a textbook application of the Ulysses Pact.
From the Odyssey.
Yes, in the Odyssey, Ulysses knows he won't be able to resist the siren's song. So he has his crew tie him to the mast of the ship. He can hear the song, but he physically cannot steer the ship into the rocks.
Wow, that's a perfect analogy.
By automating the transfer and literally removing the debit card, the subject tied himself to the mast. He made it physically difficult to fail.
It essentially saved him from himself. But look, even with automation, the psychological urge to spend doesn't just vanish overnight. And that brings me to step 6. Sitting with discomfort.
This is the hard part.
This was the mental gym for him. He'd be sitting at home on a Friday night, bored out of his mind, seeing his friends on Instagram partying in Tulum or at a really nice bar downtown. And he would feel this intense physical urge to just go spend.
To belong.
He wanted to buy something,
Yeah.
anything, just to feel like he was part of the world again.
That creates a massive amount of anxiety and FOMO, the fear of missing out. How did he actually handle those nights?
He just sat there.
He just sat there.
He learned to literally just sit on his couch with the feeling. He realized that the urge to spend money is very much like a wave in the ocean. It crests and peaks, and if you can just wait 10 minutes, it crashes and eventually goes away. He practiced what he called urge surfing.
Urge surfing is actually a well-known mindfulness technique used heavily in addiction recovery.
Really?
Yes. Whether the craving is for cigarettes, alcohol, or in this case, shopping, the craving itself is always temporary. Most people interpret that discomfort as a signal to act. They think, I feel bad, I must fix it right now.
Right.
The subject managed to reinterpret that discomfort as a signal to wait.
And building that specific muscle is honestly more valuable than the money itself. Because once you know for a fact you can survive the intense urge to spend without giving in, you become pretty much invincible. You're no longer a slave to your own impulses.
It sounds like a really perfect airtight system. But life rarely follows a clean, linear path. We promised the listeners a raw story. It wasn't just a straight line up to 10K, was it?
Oh, absolutely not. He stumbled really hard along the way. In fact, there were 3 major pitfalls that almost entirely derailed him.
Let's hear the mistakes, because this is where the real learning happens. Success leaves clues, but failure teaches the best lessons.
For sure. So mistake number 1 was the solo mission. Like I said way earlier, he was a proud guy. He kept his financial struggle a complete secret from almost everyone in his life.
Trying to protect his ego.
He thought he had to bear the burden entirely alone. The result was profound isolation. He felt so lonely. He felt like he was being punished in his apartment while everyone else was out having fun.
Secrecy heavily feeds shame. Dr. Brené Brown's research on shame highlights this perfectly. Shame needs 3 specific things to grow out of control: secrecy, silence, and judgment.
Wow.
When you hide something, you give it immense power over you.
Exactly. So the fix for him was finally opening up to 2 close friends. He swallowed his pride one afternoon and just said, look, guys, I'm digging into debt right now. I'm on a very strict budget.
How did they react?
It changed everything. One of his friends actually breathed a sigh of relief and said, thank God, me too.
See? Everybody is hiding it.
They started sharing screenshots of their savings accounts with each other. They became actual accountability partners. They turned the whole miserable process into a friendly competition.
That transforms the entire dynamic from isolation to solidarity. Suddenly, you aren't the poor friend anymore. You're the disciplined friend on a mission. It leverages that social pressure for good instead of evil.
Mistake number 2 was ignoring the income equation for way too long. For the first 2 months, he was completely obsessed with cutting costs.
The scarcity trap.
Right, he was clipping digital coupons for 50 cents off laundry detergent. He was stressing over the price of bananas at different grocery stores. But he was totally ignoring the fact that he had free hours on his weekends where he could be earning $20, $30, or $50 an hour.
He was tripping over dollars to save pennies.
Exactly. Once he finally pivoted his energy to earning more, the math changed rapidly. But then came mistake number 3. And this one is tough. The I deserve it trap.
Oh, that I deserve it trap. I know this one very well.
It's the most dangerous one, isn't it?
In psychology, we call this moral licensing.
Moral licensing.
Yes. When we do something good, like, say, sticking to a budget for 4 months, We subconsciously give ourselves permission to do something bad, like overspending. We feel like we've built up moral credit.
That is exactly what happened. He'd been so good for 4 months, he had some real savings finally built up. Then his car needed a repair. A totally legitimate expense, right? Fine.
That's what savings are for.
But then, right after that stressful repair, he saw a piece of tech, a brand new pair of high-end headphones that he really wanted, and he convinced himself, look, I've been working so hard, I've sacrificed so much, I deserve this.
And you bought them?
He dipped right into the sacred savings account.
And how did that actually feel afterward? Let me guess. Not great.
Terrible. The guilt was immediate. It set him back almost a full month of progress. He realized in that moment that while he definitely deserved nice things, he deserved financial security much more.
That is a critical distinction for everyone to hear.
He had to choose which deserve was more important in the heat of the moment.
The conflict between deserving pleasure in the short term and deserving safety in the long term.
The major lesson there was, you absolutely need an emergency fund that is treated as completely sacred. And you need to be brutally honest with yourself about what constitutes an actual emergency.
Right.
Noise-canceling headphones are not an emergency. A blown car tire so you can get to work is an emergency.
So he navigated the pitfalls, he side hustled, he fought the urges, he saved. Bring us to the finish line of the case study.
It took 11 months. Not the 90 days he originally hoped for.
It always takes longer.
11 full months of grinding, saying no to friends, and working straight through his weekends. I remember reading the description of the morning it finally happened.
Set the scene.
He woke up, opened his banking app while making coffee, and there it was, 5 digits, $10,000 and some spare change.
What did he do?
And nothing.
Nothing.
He didn't pop champagne. He didn't post a screenshot on Instagram. He just sat there at his kitchen counter staring at the screen. He thought about that guy on the floor at 2 a.m. with the calculator 11 months ago.
Yeah.
And he just felt this quiet, burning sense of pride.
Right.
It wasn't wild excitement. It was deep satisfaction.
I love that we keep coming back to the silence in this story. The entire journey started in terrifying silence on the floor, and it ended in peaceful silence with the app. Real growth almost always happens in the quiet moments when nobody else is watching.
That is the absolute truth. So for everyone listening to this deep dive right now, here is what that entire journey taught our subject and what it should teach all of us. If you take absolutely nothing else away today, take these 4 final lessons.
Let's summarize them.
Lesson 1. It's not actually about the money.
Say that again?
The $10,000 is just a number on a bank server somewhere. The real prize of this whole ordeal is proving to yourself that you can do hard things. You are fundamentally building self-trust.
Yes. You are rewriting your own internal reputation. You are no longer the person who flakes on their goals. You are the person who executes. That pays dividends forever.
Lesson 2. Patience. It takes much longer than you think it will. This is a total rebuild, not a weekend race.
Right.
You cannot undo years of bad financial habits in a single week. Give yourself some grace, but do not give yourself excuses.
We often talk about Parkinson's law, which states that work expands to fill the time available. But here, patience has to expand to fill the magnitude of the goal. You have to respect the compound interest of your daily effort.
Lesson 3. Community. Tell someone what you're doing. Do not try to do it alone in the dark.
Shame dies when you speak it out loud.
Find an accountability partner. It makes the weight so much lighter.
And the final lesson.
Lesson 4. Start now. The hardest part isn't saving the $10,000. The hardest part is saving the very first dollar.
Absolutely.
The hardest part is the very first time you look a friend in the eye and say no to a purchase.
Because that is the exact moment you break the inertia. Think of Newton's first law. An object at rest stays at rest. You have to apply significant force to get it to move.
Exactly. Inertia is the enemy here.
Yeah.
So you have to move today, not next Monday, not when New Year's rolls around, today.
You know, analyzing this case study, I really hope everyone listening takes a second to reflect on where they currently are in their own journey.
I agree.
And we'd really love to hear from you. If you are listening to this, drop a comment or send us a message. Where are you at right now? Are you at 0? Are you halfway there? Have you already pushed past the 10K mark?
That's a great call to action. We want to build a real community here, not just broadcast to an audience.
Absolutely. Because seeing other people down in the trenches with you makes the whole process so much less scary.
So let's wrap this up. That's a wrap on today's deep dive into the road to the first 10K. If this conversation resonated with you, do us a massive favor. Hit that like button, share this with someone who really needs to hear it today, and subscribe if you haven't already.
It really helps.
Every single sub helps us keep making deep dives like this.
And if you want more real conversations about money, growth, and everything in between, you already know where to find us.
Growth House, your home for real growth. We'll see you in the next one.